What's up, creators and creatrixes? I'm Wicked. I'm giving power back to the people, and you can't stop me. Today, we are going to discuss protecting oneself in the magical realm. But before we begin, go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and hit that little bell so that I can help you keep your third eye in the sky while you take back control of your life and start creating your favorite experience. When it comes to magic, I think one of the most important things to understand is that as soon as you awaken and step into this realm, you start shining your light in this realm, which is a wonderful thing, but it also attracts some not so wonderful things. As soon as you step into the magical, spiritual, energetic realm, whatever you want to call it, you alert all of the other entities that you're there. Now, depending on your vibrational standpoint, this doesn't have to be a bad thing, but if you're still in the process of figuring out how to control your own energy, it leaves you vulnerable to some of these other entities. I like to call them negaforces. There are tons of different kinds of energies in this world, and not all of them seek to do you malice, but some of them are just troublemaking in nature. There are things that are going to just mess with you just a little bit because they can, and worse things that are going to try to drain you because they need external power to keep fueling their own energy. Now, please know, none of this is meant to scare you. This doesn't have to be a frightening thing. I just want you to be aware, because more often than not, when we start to awaken and we adapt a new spiritual path, we notice that things are falling apart. And sometimes this is due to an ego death, which we will touch on a little bit, but it's also due to all of these mischievous little forces that are trying to get a hold of your energy. It's important to be aware of these things so that you can protect yourself from these things. Just as we can gain extra energy from channeling source, the universe, your guides, your ancestors, you can have energy taken away from you by beings that are channeling you and siphoning your energy. Now, some of you have already experienced this. As a matter of fact, a member of our community has reached out to me because of this experience, and the conversation that we had really inspired me to create this video. I've been planning to do a video on protection magic, but it's a little bit more hands-on, so it's taking some time to put together. So this isn't that, but this is just kind of a brief rundown on how you can protect yourself and the many different ways that you can flex your power to do so. But again, in order to protect yourself, you have to know what you're dealing with here. I think it's really common for fear to pop up in these kind of practices, even if you've been practicing the craft or some other version of flexing your power for a long time, because when you start to feel your own power rise, it gives you an idea of how powerful other forces in this world can be. Now, sometimes that frightens people, and I've also run into the occasional witch who has been practicing for years but has never actually practiced, meaning they aren't casting spells because they fear repercussions or negaforces or what have you. We, as people, tend to develop a lot of reasons to doubt and fear new things, and by holding ourselves in that vibration, we are cutting ourselves off from our power, which is the exact opposite of what we need to be doing. And generally, we don't actually want to be doing that at all, but we allow fear to get in the way. The best way to fight fear is with true, genuine knowledge. Understand that just as your light was able to attract these negative forces, this light is also able to expel them. You just have to be mindful of it. It's also important to understand that you can only be influenced by that which is really a vibrational match to you. As human beings, we tend to carry a handful of different vibrational frequencies because we are a little bit split up within ourselves. That's why alignment is such an important thing and really stressed over here on this channel, because alignment allows you to get all the facets of yourself into one place, going in one direction, working together. And when you're aligned, you're more powerful and less susceptible to all of the weird and negative things that can happen in life. Now, we know that your thoughts dictate your emotions, and your emotions dictate your vibrational frequency. Your vibrational frequency is the conversation that you are constantly having with the universe through your subconscious. But your frequency also determines your accessibility. it's pretty straightforward that whatever you are a vibrational match to is what you are going to attract. So if you are fear-focused, worry and doubt-ridden, you're going to attract things of that vibration, which can appear to be negative forces, illness, disease, mental instability, bad experiences, a string of what appears to be bad luck, and self-sabotage. Now, when you raise your frequency, you are no longer a match for these things. Now, of course, there is the occasional very powerful negaforce that will still be able to reach you, even at your highest state, but that's why it's important to understand how to protect yourself. And like I said, your best chance at protecting yourself from these forces is through your alignment. Now, I mentioned ego deaths earlier, and this is important because when we start to wake up, or even when we reach a new phase or level in our spirituality, our ego is going to combat that a little bit. So we have to go through the process of taming that ego and allowing its many different facets to slowly die off so that we can expand to the next level. However, the ego does not go quietly into that good night. The ego is going to fight back, and that's usually going to manifest as those things falling apart, like a lot of tower moments in your life. You might be stepping into a new phase of your spirituality and something comes up at your job and now you need to find a new one. And what we don't realize in that time is that this is largely in part because that job was no longer an energetic match for our new state of being. This is also our ego kind of fighting back because it sort of thinks that if it can dismantle things around us, it can scare us back into that little box that the ego has made for us. Now, remember, the ego is just a concept of self-identity. It is largely governed by your five senses, and truly, ego is just my agreement to pretend that you are who you say you are, and your agreement to pretend that I am who I say I am. One of the most important lessons you can learn in spirituality is the art of detachment. But our ego really stands in the way of detachment because we are so attached to our sense of self. And I'm not talking about our spiritual sense of self, I'm talking about our human sense of self. Now, this manifests for us as being stuck in a certain type of wardrobe. Now, I'll admit, I don't look like this all the time. I have many different facets and many different colors of clothing, but for branding purposes, I stick with this because this is what I like, and it helps me to be able to kind of hack into the wicked identity so that I can do this. It gives me a direct line to that particular source which I choose to channel. However, if not you, I'm sure you know many people who are very stuck in their ways because their ways, their belief systems, the things that they'll get all aggressive about are what keep them feeling solid in who they are. It's all this falsified idea of these external things giving us the validation that we're searching for to believe that we are who we are. When in truth, we're all source fractals. We are all the same. It is the choices that we make here in the physical that make us truly different. And there's nothing wrong with diversity, although in extreme cases it can lead to some really negative things. And the same can be true for energy. These negative forces, they are fractals of source energy that never fully healed and never rejoined the collective. They split off and have gone their own ways, just as some of us humans do. And that means that they're going to have their own agendas and their own needs and desires, just as humans do. I'm not a big believer in religion, but I would imagine that these negative forces are what the church considers to be demons. If it helps you to look at them that way, go for it. Your experience and your perspective is valid in your own right. You just have to figure out how all of this makes sense to you and how you can apply it into your own life. So it's good to know that, especially in spirituality, a lot of things are synonyms. And figuring that out is going to help you kind of blend all of these things, and it's also going to keep you from getting too distracted with terminology and semantics. Now, back to ego. So when we start to wake up, our ego starts fighting us. We'll notice things aren't going well, and it's really frustrating because as you start to wake up, you may notice that you've been feeling better than you ever have before. So especially if you're following law of attraction, you're thinking, all right, I'm doing better, why aren't things going better? Well, you have to understand that as you're growing, so too is the universe, and it's still feeding off of the vibration that you've been putting out for a really long time, especially if you've been in a negative place for years, it's going to take a little bit of time for your new attitude to counteract all of that energy in the universe. The physical realm is the densest vibrational reality. Things move incredibly slowly here. That's why it takes so long for things to manifest. This is also why it takes so long to turn around your attitude. Now, if you aren't a super negative person, it's going to be a little bit quicker because you don't have as far to travel. But if you've been stuck in a bad place, it's going to take more time and more effort to get through it. Do not be discouraged by this. It is still important work and it is still worth it. But you have to understand that if you keep letting your ego rule your experience, an unchecked ego will lower your vibration. As I said, your vibration determines your accessibility. So if your ego is constantly sinking your vibration, you are going to be more susceptible to all of these negative forces around. As we've discussed, this is all a journey, meaning you're going to have to reiterate the same things in your life. Go back and retouch. You're going to have to keep working to find your alignment, to stay in your alignment, to allow new experiences to shape you in a positive way, in the direction that you wish to go. This is a process. You can never get it done, but you can also never get it wrong. It's all about healing, growing, finding the next thing. And that is a really positive and really wonderful thing. It keeps us from getting bored, but it can also be incredibly frustrating. When you've been practicing techniques like these for years and all of a sudden you find yourself kind of at rock bottom again, this is honestly just annoying because you've put in so much work and likely you've got some inner self-talk going on that's going to tell you that you should be doing better than this, but we're all humans. We are going to spend our entire lives falling in and out of alignment, which means we are going to have a lot of different experiences, and this contrast is necessary for our personal growth because without knowing what you don't want, you can't really know what you do want. The same can kind of be said for these negative forces. Without having an idea of the power that they hold, you don't really have an idea of the power that you hold to combat these things. Everything we learn is based off of life experience, so in order to learn the true capabilities of your power, you have to have experiences in which you need to flex it. Which is why those who've been practicing but refuse to actually practice or cast or try out any of these things, they're never going to notice the great value that is to come, the payouts, because they're too stuck behind their fear. And that alone, being too afraid to flex your power because you're fearful of stepping into the magical world, which you've likely already done, or because you fear the consequences or the repercussions or whatever, and that's in the magical world or in the physical world. There are lots of different reasons that people worry, but by keeping yourself in that vibration, you are making yourself way more susceptible to all of these negative forces in the world, in all the realms, than if you were to just practice the spell. It's kind of ironic, but the reality of it is that you have to be willing to do the work to release your fear. You have to be willing to do the work to keep your vibration at a certain point. This is like spiritual maintenance. You have to do upkeep on your soul to keep it in the correct vibration. And this is because we are constantly facing so many different life experiences, so many new things, new energies, or so much of the same old energy. That is why being mindful is so incredibly important. You have to pay attention to your emotions to recognize where you are in relation to your source of power. And if you're feeling bad, scared, negative, doubtful, you're very far from your source of power, because your source of power is always high vibrational, meaning it is always feeling good, safe, protected, happy. And the issue with that is the further that you get from your source, the harder it is for your source to protect you. Now, of course, there are many different ways that you can protect yourself. Some people turn to crystals, some turn to candle magic or other types of protection magic and spells. Some people really like sage. There's truly a million different ways to flex protection magic, but at its base, it is all about your vibrational standpoint. So even if you do all of these things, but you hold on to your doubts, fears, and worries, you are allowing yourself to become an energetic match for the negative side of life. This is going to make it really hard to practice protection magic because you're going to be expending a lot of energy without actually getting to where you want to be. And the longer you keep yourself in that low vibrational state, the more things that are going to come mess with you, and the harder, at the very least, your life is going to get. So that's going to work like a feedback loop. You're going to be practicing for a better outcome, but not in alignment for a better outcome. So you're going to get the same or a worse outcome, which is going to cause you to doubt yourself. That is the opposite of what we want here. We are all about empowerment. So recognize that in order to empower yourself, you have to start from your best possible place of vibrational frequency. All of that comes back to belief systems, mindfulness, paying attention, controlling your thoughts, and not allowing yourself to stay in a bad or negative feeling place for too long. Like I said, it's all spiritual maintenance. There are no quick fixes or easy ways out, which is going to be very disappointing for some of you, because a lot of people turn to magic hoping that it's going to make things easier, but not until you make things easier for yourself. All of this, it requires a lot of discipline and a lot of patience with your own self as well. So you can't be your own biggest enemy. You have to be your biggest supporter, your biggest fan. You have to be willing to hype yourself up, especially if you want to practice magic in a big way. And if you aren't at a good high vibrational standpoint, you become easy prey for these negative forces. It's because you're allowing yourself to vibrate on their frequency, and that means you're on the same level as them. So it's really easy for them to sling things at you. But if you allow yourself to rise vibrationally, the higher up you get, the harder it is for them to touch you. But like I said earlier, every once in a while, a particularly strong one of these forces or a culmination of a lot of them may still find a way to reach you. But this is likely less because of their power and more because you've allowed yours to slip a little bit. And this is going to happen. This is going to happen over and over and over again because we are humans, and as life experience continues to bring us new things that shape and mold us, we're going to fall out of alignment, and it's work to get back into it. Now, if a lot of this feels like I'm reiterating the same point, it's because I am. Because you really need to understand that at the end of the day, the only way you can protect yourself is to take care of your energetic state. You have to be mindful of your vibrational frequency in order to keep yourself safe, healthy, and happy. This is no one else's responsibility. It's no one else's fault. You have to be the ship, and if you let the water get in and drag you down, that's on you. No one else is responsible for your alignment or your energetic state, and that's one of the biggest issues that we have in our current society, is that we are all placing our source of power outside of ourselves, and we are giving our power away to different people, to circumstances, to objects, many different things. You have to recognize that you can't be happy, empowered, in love, any of the good stuff without first embodying that in yourself. So if you're the type of person who spends a lot of time searching for external validation, know that you are at the mercy of life experience, meaning you are a victim of your experience, not the creator. You have to be willing to be disciplined, mindful, and strong enough in yourself to set the tone for your own life, and you cannot let the water get into your ship. And that applies both with human beings and negative forces as well. This too is manifesting and law of attraction, just like anything else. So do recognize that the longer you pay attention to these negative forces, the more power that you give them, be they human or non-corporeal. Negativity is always going to try to feed off of you, but it's up to you whether you satiate that or not. We all have the ability to decide enough is enough and take back our own power. But again, you have to want to, and you have to be willing to do the work. This is all a game of energy. It's a game of frequencies. So if you don't like the results that you're getting in your life, or if you feel like something is messing with you or preying on you, recognize that you are on their level. You have allowed your vibration to sink, and the more you pay attention to those things, the easier it's going to be for them to affect you. If you realign yourself and get back to a higher vibrational point of being, that for the most part is going to wipe out the majority of these negative things that try to mess with you. Now, of course, there are other things that can happen. There is always the possibility of another human being trying to mess with you. Spiritual guides deciding that perhaps you've dishonored an agreement with them, and so they're going to give you a little bit of a clapback for that. This actually happens frequently in magic because as humans, it's kind of like when we're on our deathbed, we start bargaining with God, right? So we do the same thing in magic when we really want something and we're working with the gods or the goddess or your guides or your ancestors, whatever it may be, we tend to make big promises. And the thing is that we might forget about them, but these forces do not. So if you break a pact to the divine, you're going to notice some repercussions. As I said, there are other practitioners who might lay a curse on you. And generally, these people aren't even practitioners. Usually, they're just people, and they have laid accidental curses. But again, the stronger that your vibrational standpoint is, the higher up you are, the less effective they are going to be. Now, there's a lot of ways to do uncrossings, unhexings, ridding yourselves of curse, but water is going to be the biggest game changer for these things, because water is one of the purest forms of energy. It can take any form, and it allows us to cleanse our body both physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. So one of the easiest things that you can do if you feel that you have actually been cursed is going to be to take a shower, push a lot of water through your system, give yourself a baptism of sorts, go out into nature, into a spring or a lake or a river. That especially is going to help you cleanse your energy and your aura. Now again, there's a million different ways that you can do this, that you can practice protection and that you can practice uncrossing, but at its base, it is all about energetic frequency. And these things don't have to be great big errands. They can be easy. Especially the higher vibrational that you are, the easier it's going to be to shed the old skin that has experienced whatever negativity that's been thrown at it. Now, like I said, I am going to do a more specific video on how to practice protection magic later on, but just remember that, like anything else, it's all about your energetic state. This is because your vibrational frequency dictates your level of power. And if you truly believe that you have been cursed, hexed, or messed with, water is going to be a key in getting rid of these things. But if for whatever reason water doesn't work for you, know that you can turn to any of the elements and experience cleansing in different ways. You can always write your fears and worries down and cast them into the fire to burn away. You can go to the beach and bury yourself in sand to allow yourself to cleanse and get really grounded with the earth again. Or you can simply stand in the wind and allow all of that negativity to blow away. The earth is here at our disposal, and generally what we do with it is not great, but there are still these monumentous powers available for us to take care of, cleanse, and protect ourselves. And ultimately, remember, this is your experience, so it's all about what you allow yourself to entertain. Once again, the more you focus on these negative forces, the easier it's going to be for them to affect you. If you allow yourself and your vibration to become way too high for them to touch, you don't really have to worry about these things. Again, none of this was meant to scare you. Most of these things aren't actually out to get you, they're just out for themselves, and they're going to take the easiest prey. So don't allow yourself to be the lowest one on the totem pole, and you don't have to worry. You can always cast out or banish these forces as well, but in my experience, they're going to come back. It may not even be the same ones, but there are always going to be these things in life, because as I said, as humans, we are constantly in and out of alignment. So when you notice that things aren't going right, or it seems like something is messing with you, pay attention first to your own energetic state. Get your frequency back up before you try to retaliate or combat these things at all, because if you are still operating at a low vibrational standpoint, trying to combat these things, you're wasting your energy. In order to protect oneself in the magical realm, you have to be willing to do the spiritual maintenance. That's all I have for this one. Thank you so much for joining me, and make sure to like and subscribe so that I can help you keep your third eye in the sky. Stay blessed.